Welcome to Enlightenment Unknown, Life of a Spiritual Nomad. My name is Wes Coons, and welcome back. I tell you what, we're flying into summer, and it has been beautiful here in eclectic Virginia Beach. And I've got my very good friend Nancy here. Hey, what's up, Nancy?
What's up, Wes? Thanks for having me.
Oh, thanks for coming. I've been waiting for you to come on the show for a little bit now.
Yeah, here I am. Ask me anything.
Yeah. First off, thank you. And I want to say thank you to the listeners. We've got the best listeners. We get questions all the time. And I just want to say thank you for listening to the show. Really appreciate it. And I hope you get something out of it. If you hear something on here that somebody else needs to hear, tell a friend and pass that on. So Nancy, tell us, who are you and what do you do?
I, Wes, am a Gemini, an 8 on the Enneagram, and I am a manifesting generator. And so
Nice.
that means I have lots of different interests. I am curious. I am open-minded. And I see potential in everything, everywhere.
Nice. So one of my favorite questions, do you see dead people?
I don't see them, but I do receive lots of messages from them.
My daughter's getting married in a couple weeks, and I was at dance class this morning. And as the instructor's talking to me, there's somebody, a dead person, standing in the office staring at me. I'm like, oh, this is awkward. Yeah. I'm like, what do you do? Makes life a little interesting, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah, for sure. When I first began noticing that I experience life very differently than many people, and tuning back into that, because it was when I look back on my life, very evident when I was a child that I picked up on things that nobody else picked up on. And then around school age, which is common for most people with intuitive gifts, which is all of us, when we reach school age and we go into a formal education setting, we are forced to start using our analytical and logical mind versus that creative part of our brain. And when we're tapped into logic, we begin to lose our intuitive gifts.
Sure.
And when I started to tune back into them in adulthood during a dark night of the soul, which is, in my experience, interviewing people on my podcast, Alchemy with Nancy, this is generally how people get into this line of work to begin with, is because they've gone through either some sort of disillusionment, grief, loss, either job, relationship, a death, whatever it is that shakes up life and has you questioning, like, what the fuck am I doing here? What is my purpose? What is my next step, right? I found myself there, and I started doing things that were like not like me, like listening to songs and just being a fucking wreck listening to them, like the words were speaking directly to me. And then just experiences where you're thinking about somebody and then they just show up, which has happened to me throughout my entire life, but it was becoming more and more frequent and more insane. And it wasn't just one thing happening, it was like 14 things happening all at the same time, where you're just like, how the fuck did that happen? And it was over and over again, where I was like, I'm nuts. Like, something's wrong with me. I called up a friend who's a therapist and deals with people who have extreme trauma, which I score, like I always say, a 9.5 on the adverse childhood.
Yeah.
Whatever, ACE test, I think is what they call it. And so, like, yeah, I definitely have the trauma thing going on. And I was like, this is what's going on. And I think I'm crazy. And like, I think things and then they happen. And sometimes I see a movie reel in my head and then it happened. And she's like, yeah, she's like, you're not crazy. I was like, just tell me straight up. Like, we've known each other since we were 12. And the crazy part of all of this is we're sitting right now, for those of you who are listening, in Wes's recording studio in Virginia Beach. And I literally lived a block away. And the therapist person that I'm talking about lived a couple of blocks away from me, further down the street. So I had known her since I was 12. And so I knew she was going to give it to me straight. I was like, do I need a psychiatrist? Like, what is wrong? And she was like, no, you're just She's like, it's a midlife awakening. She was like, you're
Mm-hmm.
not crazy. You're going, and I was like, what the fuck does this mean? And then more and more things just happened. And then I eventually came out of the metaphysical closet. It's interesting though. One of my favorite quotes, and it's so apropos for this time of year with like graduations and whatnot, is the one that Steve Jobs did for the commencement speech at Stanford, where he said, you cannot connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backward. And yet you got to believe in something like life, karma. You know that one?
Yes.
Yeah. And so when I look back, like all of this makes sense. Like
Mm-hmm.
when I moved to Virginia Beach in the late 1970s, my mom worked at the ARE. I grew up there. Like I went to summer camp there. My favorite thing to do was play on the ESP machine, which is no longer in existence. It's in the archives, I've been told. But I loved playing with that when I was little. I always knew things when I was little about people, and my family would be like, Nancy, no, that person's okay. No, they're not. I just knew. But again, like time and time again, we were told, no, you're wrong or whatever. And then you go to school, it all just kind of dissipates.
See, I didn't have any of that until 6 years ago. I had
Wow.
nothing as a child. My brother Dennis and I would tease that Freddy the Ghost was in the house. I don't even know why, but no intuition, no gifts, no nothing. It just went from 0 to 100% in a short period of time.
Wow.
Yeah, it was painful. It was painful. Yeah, I think it took me, that happened on, COVID was 2020, right?
Yes.
So this was 2019. So it started February of 2019. And I just kind of got comfortable in my skin maybe a year ago. So it's been a hard 5 years. It's been a hard 5 or 6 years. So trying to figure out how to manage all this stuff, see the dead people, just everything, and then go into the real estate office and have a quote unquote normal conversation with somebody, and there's a dragon standing next to me, right? My family thought I was crazy. So since I owned the family business, and finally I said, well, if I'm crazy, I'm probably not competent to write paychecks, and all of a sudden they fucking believed me. So funny how that worked. They're like, oh, we believe in that stuff. I'm like, I bet you do. But they just were worried about me. And so I find it just so interesting where people are talking about how they've had this their whole life. I think it's cool. I don't know. It's fun.
I wonder if there's no remembrance of it, and that it was there.
Maybe.
I only wonder that based on what I know about past lives and coming into the new life with a remembrance of what happened, especially when you're small.
Sure.
So, and I wonder too if it was just something that, yeah, like I said, you don't remember.
Yeah.
I
Well,
just wonder.
I guess I can't say I'd never had it because I was in the first Gulf War, and the first time we were under a missile attack, I was able to completely stop time. That was trippy. So it was funny. This morning I was running super late. So I slowed down time by 3/4, and I'm taking my sweet ass time. So what should have taken me on the clock should have taken me 30 or 40 minutes. It really only took about 6 or 7 minutes. But I did notice something when I was driving to my appointment and time was still slowed. Somebody pulled in front of me, and I caught myself getting agitated about it. And all of a sudden I lost the ability to control it. And I got to my appointment late. I was like, that's interesting. So my anger, that brief little bit of anger shifted all of it, and I was not able to get it back.
It disturbed your flow.
Yeah. But during the war, when that came over, literally like you see in the movies where somebody's frozen, they were in mid-motion, and they were there for a couple minutes. I'd never experienced that before, so I'm just walking around, looking at everybody. So I guess I can't say I didn't have it. It showed up in extreme circumstances. So, The other thing I realized I was able to do is leave my body and go up through the tent and look around so I could see that situational awareness. And that comes in handy when you become your own drone and you could go up and look down at things. So I don't know. Makes life interesting, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's like remote viewing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Which is so cool.
I didn't talk about it or anything, but when the haunted house came, that's when really everything opened up and changed for me. But so what kind of healing work and stuff do you do? I know on your website it says you're an intuition and you're a mindset mentor. So what is that?
So I wouldn't call, I love the kind title of healer. I just consider myself just somebody who's authentic about my journey. And I suppose by doing that, the byproduct of that is healing other people through sharing my story and my experiences. What I do is I help women return to their inner knowing. I believe that we all are intuitive. We all have the ability to interpret and perceive energy. And a great example of this is if you've ever walked into a room where two people have been arguing or talking about you, and you walk into the room, you can feel it. You can feel the energy.
Oh, 100%.
And you can even look at an image of two people that are in love and looking at each other, and you can feel that. And so we all have that ability. But like I said earlier, most of us are trained out of that ability around school age. And there's so much research that supports all of this, especially if you look at incidents of children with recollection, past life experiences. All of this is interrelated. They'll have remembrances. Generally speaking, I should say, let me backtrack. These researchers they want to talk to them when they're under the age of 5, I believe, so that they can make sure that those memories are actually coming from a past life and not this current reality that they're a part of. And so, so that they can make that differentiation. What were you going to say?
I had met a family a couple years ago, and I think their child was maybe 3 or 4. Yeah, probably 3 or 4. He was, I don't know what he does now, but he was a Navy SEAL, and being in the military, especially that level of stuff, the dragons, all this stuff isn't a normal conversation. So they invited me over, and this little boy comes up and says, "Oh yeah, my mommy's been my mommy 3 or 4 different times." He's playing with his toy, and he's talking about things that a child at that age, there's no way that child would talk about that stuff. And he even predicted that she was going to have a daughter the next year, and she did. He said, "My sister's coming. She'll be here next year for Christmas."
Kids are so intuitive. Like, they're so connected. They're so connected. Yep. And then, like I said, there comes that disconnect. And it's the more formal education you have, that disconnect becomes even greater, right? Because now you're really being trained to think in your logical mind.
Sure.
But we all have these gifts, and I believe that our most powerful gift is our intuition, because when we are tapped into our intuition and our inner knowing, it helps us navigate life so much easier. It helps us make decisions faster because we're not sitting there wondering, oh, what's the right move to make? We know. And so, my goal, what I do, is to help people tap into their divine knowing and to help them navigate life better.
I love that. So I've had a ton of people reach out, and basically it's almost the same question over and over is do I have gifts? If I do, what are they? So I ask a couple questions, and for example, movement out of the side of your eye, and when you look, there's nothing there. That's your third eye looking in other dimensions, right? That one's always an easy one for people to recognize. But there's always this underlying, there's something wrong with me. I can't tell people. I'm afraid to tell people. So how did you maneuver coming out of the closet, basically, or whatever you want to call that, right?
Yeah, so it was a slow burn for me. In fact, this is a great story. I was with my friend, Amy Benosi. Hi, Amy, if you're listening.
Hi, Amy.
And Amy is an amazing energy healer and spiritual teacher. But she was hosting this women's group online. I think it was like during COVID, maybe slightly after. And I was like, I really just want to come out of the metaphysical closet with my wings spread. And I'm like making this big joke about it. And then she pulls a card and it says something like, it's time to come out with your wings spread in business and in life. And everyone that was there were like, holy shit, I cannot believe that just happened. But so then I was like, okay, I'm going to start a podcast. And then then I started the podcast, and that was in 2024. So maybe this was like in 2022 or 3 or something that I had this conversation with Amy. But it had been brewing, like the idea, since 2020, but I just couldn't do it. And then it's just to speak to synchronicity, right? Because I believe that everything comes in the exact time it's supposed to, and it just, everything lines up, right?
Sure.
There's things, and they seem seemingly unrelated, but there's a meaningful correlation, right? And so for me, the meaningful correlation or a meaningful correlation that got me here was, I think it was in 2019, I was reintroduced to the Enneagram. Okay, which is a personality typology system. And we explore a lot of self-awareness topics on my podcast as well. I love the Enneagram and strength finders and human design and all of it, you name it, I'm into it. But some coworkers of mine were talking about their Enneagram types, and I'm like, the Enneagram, I know I've done that one, but I don't remember what my type is. And I go and I look and I read it. I'm like, holy shit. Like, did the person who wrote this, have they been following me around my entire life? Like, this sounds exactly like me.
That's awesome.
And so one of the things that I recognized immediately was how I avoided, past tense, vulnerability like the plague. I did not want anyone to see me sweat. I always had a smile. I was like, I'm not going to let anyone know that I just was that person. I didn't cry. If I did, it was like because I was so angry that felt like I was going to snap. Like,
sure.
Anyway, I recognized after I decided, I love the Enneagram. Like, let me go take an Enneagram certification course. That was not what I was meant to do. I was meant to get over my fear of vulnerability and to recognize that in myself. And so that was like the stepping stone. And it was a catalyst to help me get out of being stuck about not wanting to talk about these things. The other piece of this, and this is funny. One time my mom told me, you would go to hell and back to prove that you're right. And this is also why my family encouraged me to go to law school. I'm like, yeah. And I essentially did go to hell and back because I went through this very dark time, managed to intuitively pull myself out of it because I knew I haven't always been like this. I can figure my way out of this. And then I forgot where I was going with this. What did I say last? Are you going to edit this?
Yeah, we'll edit it. You're talking about where you were going through hell and stuff.
Oh, yeah, my mom said, okay, so this is a funny story. One time my mom told me, you would go to hell and back to prove that you're right. And when I started having these experiences, I felt so strongly that I would need to prove myself, especially to people in my family. Because my mom, even though she worked at the ARE, she thought a lot of the things that went down there were kind of crazy. And they can be. Like, and especially if they don't match your experience, right? It's easy to be like, oh, that's weird because you haven't experienced it. So anyway, I was scared of all these things. So I was like, I don't really need to prove a lot of this, right? And so that sent me down the rabbit hole of University of Virginia, and all the research that's being done around psychic abilities, past life experiences, near-death experiences, and the interrelationship between all of these things. It is all incredibly fascinating to me. And it also gives language to these bizarre, as some people might call them, experiences. And it also helped me to feel more comfortable and confident talking about these. And I own it all day long. And I also know that the more that we talk about these things and we should share our experiences, especially experiences where we're receiving signs from our loved ones who have crossed, they love that more than fucking anything, because our loved ones are trying to communicate with us all the time and they're trying to guide us to our highest and best path. And they want us to be paying attention. And so I know that when I'm out here talking about these things, that my guys are like, yeah, Nancy, this is what you are fucking born to do. Yep. You were born to share your story and communicate and guide other people onto this path so that their path is illuminated.
Yeah. Like I said, my daughter's getting married. So when I was talking to her this morning, my mom came in and I heard her say, Mom's been gone 17 years. She's like, I'm going to be there. And my brother Dennis died 2 years ago, Father's Day. And she said, I'm making Dennis come too. I don't know. It's a fun, interesting opportunity. I am grateful for the blessings. I am grateful for the lessons. I am grateful for all of it, even though, fuck, it can be painful sometimes. At least it was for me. Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. Like I said, this is how I wound up here, was going through a lot of pain. And even through my childhood. And the interesting thing about that, talk about like suppressing things. I was taught at a very early age to be tough. And I will never forget being over at my mom's parents' house. And my mom's the second oldest of 7 children. So my mom's youngest brother is only 6 years older than me. So he was like my older brother. And then her youngest sister's 9 years older than me. And I was over at my mom's parents' house, and it was just my aunt, my grandfather, and me. And my uncle was there too. And my grandfather was a raging alcoholic and literally picked my aunt up from the kitchen table and like threw her at a wall against the wall. Another childhood memory was getting in trouble because he put gravy all over my food, my grandfather, when he was watching me or I was over there. And I started to cry because I didn't like it. And I was sent to the corner and I kept crying. My uncle was like, stop crying because you're going to make it worse. And so I just learned to push all of this down. And then after I had my son and I was an adult, and I was recognizing that I was making so many decisions just based off of my son. Everything was based off of like, how is this going to affect my son? How is this going to affect, like, and I started digging into my why. And I was like, oh my God, the reason that I'm trying to live my life in this way is because I don't want my son to ever feel like I don't love him. Yeah. Because that's how I felt with my parents.
Yep.
And I like dug into that. And that also was a catalyst in helping me to see things clearly, because I always thought, why do I need to why do I need to look at that? That's in the past. Mm-hmm. I'm moving forward. And if we do not, address our past, right, in some form or fashion, then it is going to haunt us forever. And so everything was meant to crack me open. The other interesting thing too in my story is that my grandfather and I, which if you listen to my podcast, like I have recorded some episodes about like signs and synchronicities from him that are fucking insane, like insane. And so we were super, super close. Like when I was born, my grandfather was from Sicily. He kissed the doctor because I was a girl. Like he had always wanted a girl. They only had a boy, my dad. My grandmother was not able to have any other children. So when I came along, it was like, and we were super tight. And I always said, if anything ever happened to my grandfather, I'd be a wreck. And then he died and I was not a wreck. I suppressed all of my feelings. Yeah. And it all surfaced. So if you gotta deal with it to heal it.
Hey, it's going to come out somehow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think it's cool that you had that relationship. Now, my grandfather, he raped everybody. Watching what my mom went through and watching her struggle, I believe she had gifts. And of course, this was 40, 50 years ago. You couldn't comfortably come out and talk about that stuff. And so I think she was haunted by that. So I don't know. When my gifts came about, my dad just lovingly said, I think you got that from your mom.
I love what you just said about 40, 50 years ago. She can talk about this sort of stuff. It made me think about my favorite artist, who I'm actually going to see an unprecedented exhibit of her work in Paris this summer. I'm actually hosting a retreat. Her name is Hilma af Klint, and she studied art formally in Sweden in I believe it was the late 1800s. And during that time period, it was mostly men that were studying art, formally at least. And after she graduated, she was doing the typical portraits and landscape art. But secretly, she was part of a secret society of scientists and all kinds of interesting people, and this group of women known as the Five. And they studied the spiritual dimension, the spiritual realm. And when they got together, they practiced mediumship. Then they painted and did automatic writing. Hilma af Klint, the world is not ready for this, to see this work. And so she gave it to her nephew, and she was like, do not let anyone see this until 20 years after I die. When the work was finally discovered, because I think he died somewhere in the interim. And so it was long after 20 years that it was actually discovered. And when it was found, the person that found it was like, we don't know what this is, but we feel like it's something important. There were these huge canvases. The scale is insane. And they ended up calling somebody. They were like, was there a name on it? And they were like, Hilma F. Klint. And they were like, we think you have something important. They went and got it. And they were like, holy shit.
Oh, wow.
And what the coolest part of it is, she is actually the inventor of abstract art. Not Kandinsky or any of the other people who had been credited.
That's cool.
And everything was channeled into, but she was too scared to come out of the closet because of fear of what people would think. And her story and mine, there's just so many parallels.
Oh, absolutely. So I'm trying to figure out how to schedule lunch, and you're doing a retreat in Paris. So tell us about that.
Oh my gosh, yeah. It is planned for the middle of August. I have not nailed in exact dates as of yet. I have interest in the retreat, but no one has pulled the plug just yet. I have 7 spots available. It's going to be small. It's going to be intimate. We're going to be visiting oh gosh, now I can't even think of the name of the museum, but we're going to see the Hilma F. Klint exhibit. Again, it is an unprecedented exhibit in Paris. And then we're also going to see the Monet exhibit. So I don't know if any of you listeners are familiar with the water lily exhibit, but Monet, during, I believe it was the First World War, while wars raging around him, he's at home painting, and he is feeling a sense of guilt and shame over his obsession over color and light and all of these things while the world is crumbling around him. And long story short, he ends up donating the water lily collection as a symbol of hope and peace. And then along the way, we're going to be incorporating meditation, quantum time technique to help to connect you to your highest self. Research shows that when we travel and we disrupt our normal pattern, it can help us to step into a new identity sooner. And it's exactly what happened to me when I traveled to Europe last summer. I wrote a resignation letter for my day job and I'm no longer there because it really can radically shift things. You're out of your normal day-to-day, your disruptive patterns. So it's really the perfect time to make an identity shift is after a travel situation. And then when you add art into the mix, art is known, there's scientific research to back this up, to reduce stress. Even just a lunchtime visit to a gallery and looking at art. You don't even have to be doing it. You can just be looking at it, and it can reduce stress in your body.
I did not know that.
Yeah. So imagine going to Paris, staying in a 5-star hotel, being surrounded with like-minded people, being in walking distance to all kinds of cool stuff, and going there with the intention of stepping into a new identity, a better version of yourself, the version of yourself that has everything that she wants.
I think that's pretty exciting. And you know what? We are huge in Paris. We have a ton of listeners there. We have a ton of listeners in Europe. So if you want to be a part of the show, if you want to actually step in and see what it's like and meet some of these people, meet you, how would they connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can drop me a line at hello at alchemywithnancy.com, or you can find me on Instagram at alchemywithnancy. Those are probably the 2 best ways.
And what is the name of your podcast again?
It is Alchemy with Nancy.
I like it. I like it. So we are just about out of time. And this is fascinating. I didn't know any of this stuff. That's one of the fun things is when I have guests come on the show, I purposely don't ask a lot of questions because then I get to find it out right here live on the show. It was live for us. You remember Wendy's came up with fresh frozen years ago. So they'd freeze the meat. They said it's fresh frozen. This is fresh frozen for you and it's live for us. And this has been fun. This has been fun. Plus, we took, what's the name of the class we took? I forget the name of it.
We took a certification course in neuro-linguistics programming and quantum time technique, which is a form of hypnosis.
Yeah, and people can reach out to you for those healings and stuff, right?
Absolutely. And Wes can tell you, quantum time technique hypnosis is mind-blowing. I did not exactly know what to expect when I walked in. I walked in with an open mind, and I walked out with a completely blown mind.
Oh, I think everybody cried probably all week long.
Oh, yeah.
Because as we're learning it, we are doing sessions on each other, and it was a lot. It was a great class.
Yeah, and shout out to Megan Blacksmith, our teacher.
Mm-hmm.
She's actually hosting a 3-day event in Virginia Beach in October. I believe it's October 12th through 14th. And there are, I think, going to be like 200 seats there. If there are any other coaches, healers, or conscious business leaders that are interested in attending this event, we would love to see you there. We, both Wes and I, could not speak highly enough
Yep.
about Megan. We love her.
Yeah, she's
And,
amazing.
Yeah, and we all have different gifts that we are so fortunate enough to be able to share with each other here locally in Virginia Beach.
Yeah. It makes, I don't know, it makes this place that seems so painful a lot of times magical. It is magical.
This is true.
As we're sitting here doing the podcast, there's an angel came in, there's some other stuff. I'm kind of looking over my shoulder. I'm like, what in the fuck is going on? I'm the worst ordained minister. So what do you do? But Nancy, thanks so much for coming on the show. I appreciate you. I honor you. I respect you. I get to interview some of the most powerful women on the planet, and you're clearly one of the top. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
And we'll see you guys next week on the show.